Help me find some comp titles for my novel. Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. I have a dilemma, and that is I have no up-to-date comp titles to query my novel with. Just for a bit of context, I'm writing a new adult, dystopian, kind of post-apocalyptic novel with, I don't want to call it a romance because I feel like romance guarantees kind of a happy ending and it's a bit more bittersweet than that, but it's got a romance. It's got a strong romantic element that is very integral to the plot. So it's kind of dystopian romance, but it's not a very smutty romance. It's not like, oh, there's a super hot dude that she has to assassinate, and then there's lots of sexual tension. It's like more of a slow burn, it's a bit more emotional, and there are some deeper themes. However, like, I'm not the most skilled writer. I'm not like going to write the next 1984 kind of literary fiction dystopian. So we are still going for that new adult, quite trendy, quite romantic market. And I'm actually nearly finished the book. I have a goal to finish it by May. We're now mid March, and I've only got like 4.5 chapters left, 5 chapters maybe. So we're cooking, things are moving. And obviously, I'm going to do a lot of editing and stuff after that once the first draft is done. And then I'm going to be trying to find an agent for it. And when you write a query letter for an agent, you can have to demonstrate where your book is going to sit on the shelf, where its place is in the market. And you do this by having comparison titles. So you'll say, it's this element from X book meets this element from Y book. And that kind of tells the literary agent who you're similar to, who you sound like, and the kind of people that like those books and that will buy those books and that have already bought those books might buy your book and be interested in it. And there's a bit of a fine line to tread with this. So, like, if I was honestly comping my book and going along the lines of how I've been thinking about it up until recently, until I did more research, I would have said my book is like 1984 meets The Hunger Games, more specifically like Catching Fire and Mockingjay, because my main couple and the romance that they have is very similar to Peeta and Katniss. A lot of like the dynamics are similar. A lot of the themes of Catching Fire and Mockingjay are present in my book, but it's within this society that is a lot more like the society in 1984 than the kind of capital and districts. But the problem with using these as comp titles is that these are way too old. 1984 is an absolute classic. It came out way too long ago to use it as a comp title. There's no way my book is going to sit on the shelf next to 1984. And it's also kind of an arrogant comp, to be honest. Same goes for the Hunger Games. Like, the Hunger Games is way too big. It's like the same as comping like Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter. It's just an unrealistic comp, even though it is very similar, as is basically every young adult, new adult dystopian. Everything is inspired in part by the Hunger Games. Everyone's going for that Hunger Games market. Almost all the marketing for things like Silver Elite is like Hunger Games for adults. This is like the Hunger Games, the next big thing since the Hunger Games. So it doesn't need to be said. We all know that this genre is like fathered by 1984 and the Hunger Games. And it also came out way too long ago. The thing about comp titles is they have to have been out in the last 3 years, maybe 5 years if it's quite difficult for you to find comps. And it needs to be something that's sold quite well, not completely unknown, but not so well that it's an arrogant comp, like Harry Potter or the Hunger Games. So this leaves me with the task of getting really up to date with all of the books in my genre, the books that are coming out now that have been out over the last few years, but also keeping up to date with what continues to come out over the next year or two until the time when I'm actually submitting my query. So I've done a little bit of research and I've just bought a stack of books that I think I absolutely have to read because they are big players in my market, they have sold well, they're very current, and they could make quite good comps. And some of the themes and stuff in these books seems to be similar, although I haven't read them yet. So I'm just going to take you through them. I'm going to talk about what these books are about and why I think it's going to make a good comp title. And in doing so, maybe give you a little bit of an idea of what my book is about. To start with, we have The Fifth Season. This is a Hugo Award winner. It is massive, very popular, and I feel like this isn't the kind of dystopian romance, romantasy genre. It's maybe a little bit of a higher caliber, if that's okay to say, maybe a little bit more literary, and I think reading this will make my writing a bit better. I was very tempted to just buy the trilogy, but I thought I'll start with the first one, see what I think, maybe do the rest as audiobooks because I'm kind of running out of shelf space. But I've heard loads of good things about this, and I think that even if it's not quite a comp for my book, it's still important reading in my genre. Let's read the back. This is the way the world ends for the last time. It starts with a great red rift across the heart of the world's sole continent, spewing ash that blots out the sun. It starts with death, with a murdered son and a missing daughter. It starts with betrayal, and long dormant wounds rising up to fester. This is the stillness, a land long familiar with catastrophe, where the power of the earth is wielded as a weapon, and where there is no mercy. So it kind of describes a lot of apocalyptic kind of weather events, and the story seems to take place after this apocalyptic event has happened, which I think is kind of similar to my book. There's not a lot of reference, and this is on purpose, to how the world ended. There's a lot of talk of climate change, human kind of caused climate change, and the populace are kind of blamed for that, and that's why they are managed in camps in my book. They're kind of letting the world heal by depopulating certain areas and moving people to kind of strict zones of population. But the populace doesn't know a lot about that. Their history is covered up, and they are kind of in their little bubble in their community, and a lot of the truth is withheld. In book 2 of my planned series, they will get out into the world and kind of see more of the destruction and what's happened. So I think reading this book, where this kind of apocalyptic event has happened, will be interesting, it'll be useful for me, and maybe it'll be a good comp for like book 2. But I am just guessing at this point. I'm sure I'll enjoy reading it nonetheless, and probably learn a lot from it since it's the winner of the Hugo Award. Then we have something that has been absolutely massive on TikTok recently, and this is Daggermouth. This is part of an indie print, I think. The next few are, they're all these kind of massive paperbacks with very white pages, and they're just different from your average standard paperback like we just seen with the 5th season. The covers are also kind of matte, they're not very glossy. But I think it's good to read some indie publishing options, especially ones that have really taken off on TikTok and become really huge, because maybe my book could sit in that indie sort of market. I feel like this book has the potential to get really big, considering it's been so popular, maybe too big to comp, but I think it's indie enough that it should still be fine. And I think parts of this book do sound very comparable for me. The blurb reads: the first thing you'll learn in Newfound Haven is mercy no longer exists. Showing mercy is a weakness, and weakness will get you killed. The second thing is this: the Vera are always watching. From the highest glass atrium in the heart of the windowless slum dens of the Boundary, no movement goes unseen. The last lesson is the hardest, but you must remember it. Love outside your ring is a death sentence. The city is carved into rings of privilege and poverty, ruled by the masked elite who will do whatever it takes to hold power. Obedience is demanded, rebellion is crushed. This is a very long blurb, by the way, we're only halfway through, which gives me hope because I can't blurb my book in less than this amount of space at the moment either. So there we go, maybe indie is the way to go. Grayson Serrell has spent his life caught between two worlds. Publicly, he's the flawless heir to the presidency. Privately, he's entangled in secrets that could topple the regime. But when he's forced into a political marriage meant to bind him tighter to the government's brutal laws, he finds himself shackled to a bride who is as lethal as she is unwilling. Shadera is a mercenary raised to kill, not to wed. Yet, when her bullet misses its mark, survival leaves her bound to the very man she was sent to eliminate. Trapped inside the corrupt heart of the city, she becomes both prisoner and wife. Her every step watched, and her every movement tested. Their union is no love story, it's a battlefield. As secrets come to light and betrayals fester within the walls of power, Grayson and Shadera must decide between annihilating one another or burning the city to the ground together. In a world where passion sparks rebellion and loyalty is paid in blood, their forced bond may be the spark that ignites a revolution, or the fire that consumes them both. Reading this makes me scared because it sounds so similar to my book. I have a similar kind of society where there's different sections of the city, there's a slum section, and people stay within their sections. I don't have an assassination plot, but I do have an arranged marriage between a rebel and kind of a true follower of the dictator. And yeah, they might spark a rebellion or burn each other to the ground. They don't see eye to eye and have to learn to get along. So this, I think, is 100% going to be a comp for me because it's so similar. But I think I have hope that there's a lot of differences between my book and this. I'll have to read it and before I do my revision and make sure that I am different enough from it. And therein lies the peril of like taking too long to write your book because I started mine ages ago. I could have been Daggermouth. I could have been the one here. This idea is heartbreakingly similar to mine, but there's no such thing as an original idea, and hopefully my own flavour of writing and ideas will bring something different to this. And I think this is going to be quite romanticy coded, unlike mine, which I think is Hunger Games esque in its romance, I think is fair to say. Next, we have another indie press, I think, and it's Bones. Similar kind of cover, similar kind of matte feel. These books are really heavy. Daggermouth was really hurting me to hold up. This one's a bit thinner, so I'm okay. But yeah, they're noticeably weightier than a normal paperback. This is called Bones. There's a book too called Fangs, which I've not bought. I'll see how I like this one and then make up my mind later. But this is called a post-apocalyptic romantasy. So quite similar. That's kind of the genre where I'd want to set that kind of genre bending. The back reads Bones was born with the miraculous power to heal, but all her gift has brought her is death. As a child, her older brother trained her to survive, and so survive she did. The blood on her hands will never wash off, and she's broken and scarred in more ways than one, but she survived. After finally escaping ruthless raiders who imprisoned her for 12 long years, Bones is haunted by her past and desperate for atonement. Freedom is short lived, however, as the rumours of her abilities catch up to her. Dragged to the northwest mountain stronghold known as the Vault, Bones finds herself involuntarily drawn into the tight knit crew who captured her, and the feelings she begins to develop for Trey, the heart of the crew, scare her more than all the horrors of her past. Bones struggles to maintain her distance, navigate her trauma, and deal with the new horrifying ways her healing powers are used to root out a budding revolution. As her defences slowly break down, everything she believes about herself and the world is challenged, forcing her to confront the question, what are you surviving for? This sounds really good. And what drew me to this book, in comparison to mine, is this talk of her kind of traumatic past and how she has to overcome this trauma, and also how everything she believes about the world is kind of challenged, and how this changes how she thinks about herself and her role. This is very true to the kind of journey emotionally that my female main character goes on. She's been through a lot of trauma that she has to kind of overcome. She really believes in this society and this experiment that she lives inside. And when she meets my male main character, who is a bit of a rebel, she slowly starts to overcome her trauma and learn to question the world in which she lives. And this is quite catastrophic for her mentally. It takes her on quite a journey. And I think that sounds quite similar to the journey that this girl goes on in Bones. So I think this could be a good contender for a comp title. And also the talk of revolutions. There's a revolution that happens in my book. So that could be applicable as well, but not quite as like samey as Daggermouth was. Then we have our next indie press. It's called Beyond the Maples, and the cover's quite unclear. It definitely looks a bit cheaper, and there's no blurb. It just says, how far into the dust are you willing to go to save the ones you love? And I also can't even remember what this is about, so give me a second and I'm just going to scroll through the book and see if there's some kind of description in here. There was actually no description in any of the book when I looked, so I'm just going to do a quick Google on my laptop since I'm filming on my phone and can't do it that way, and figure out what the book is about and let you know. The book inside looks quite well printed. It's got a cool map, it's got cool designs at each of the chapter headings, but I'm not impressed that there's no blurb because, like, how am I meant to like put this down and then decide later that I want to read it? I'm just going to be going in blind. But maybe that's good sometimes and it'll be more fun that way, who knows. I'll look up the description now and then I'll forget it again promptly by the time it comes to actually reading this. Okay, we have it, and it's got 150 ratings on Goodreads, and it's like 4.25 stars rated, so quite high ratings, quite good. So I'm thinking it's going to be good, and it's classed as dystopia fantasy. In a crumbling world where nothing grows naturally, Maple Treole, which is the girl's name, struggles to care for her younger siblings amidst escalating government oppression. Desperate to secure medication for her ailing sister Willow, she resorts to dangerous methods to keep them afloat. When the government triples the cost of Willow's medication, Maple enlists in the army, risking her life for her family's survival. As she navigates the challenges of training, she grapples with loyalty, friendship, and the haunting history of her world. Alongside new friends, she uncovers the dark truth about the government, her family's past, and the nature of their society. As tensions rise, Maple faces betrayal from those she trusted most. Now Maple must decide whether to flee or fight, and who she can trust along the way. So I think why I chose this one is because of the governmental oppression, which is key in most dystopias, to be fair, but is very much the key in mine. And this element of her uncovering secrets about the government, the dark truth, and the dark truth about the true nature of society. I think that's quite key in my novel as well. I don't have this whole army enlisting thing, although my characters do kind of join the revolution, but they're not really in a combat kind of role. And there they do meet other people and maybe form some connections. And it seems like that's what happens here too. So there's a kind of found family element. And I do think currently where I stand in this draft of the novel, the connection with these other characters, they're not giving found family. It's quite distant at the moment. And I'm trying to think of ways to make the readers a bit more invested in them and give them a bit more airtime in the book. Because at the moment, they are very much to the side. And I've got whole backstories for all of those characters, but they don't really come through. So they're a bit lame at the moment. So reading this might give me an idea of how we bring in those extra characters and make them super lovable. Or not. I don't know. Maybe they're not lovable, but we'll see. I'll read it and I will learn either way. And I think this has potential to be a good comp title. Then moving on to our hardbacks, kind of quite new releases, I'm guessing we have To Cage a Wild Bird by Brooke East, Nice Sprayed Edges edition. This is about a deadly prison, a forbidden romance, and a fight for survival. In the city of Davidium, the law is simple. Commit a crime and your punishment is a life sentence in Endlock, a prison where the wealthy hunt inmates for sport. Raventhorn is Davidium's most notorious bounty hunter, living on the edge of society. But when her younger brother, Jed, is sentenced to Endlock, Raven will do anything to save him, even if it means getting herself arrested. Trapped in a prison where danger lurks around every corner, Raven must use all her cunning and strength to protect Jed and herself, if she is to complete her perilous mission. But there's one obstacle she never expected: the prison guard who stirs something deep inside her. The man she should hate, the man whose true motives seem impossible to pin down. In a world where trust is a weapon and love is a liability, Raven can't afford for her heart to get involved. So this sounds like a good, fun, romantic dystopian, and I don't think a lot of this sounds very similar to my book at all. However, we have a romantic element between people that shouldn't get along and have differences. That's obviously a little bit similar. And we have this prison element because my society, which is kind of modelled on a big experiment, is kind of essentially a big prison camp. So bit different from a normal prison. But from the description of this, I don't have a lot of information about what this prison is actually like. And there are areas that are a bit more like a traditional prison in my book as well. So maybe this book will give me some inspiration on modelling those specific areas. We shall see. But we're not going to have like inmates being hunted. That's going to be quite different. My prison is a bit more like a hospital kind of prison, and that's all I'll say. And then finally, we have Conform, another lovely hardback. One man could offer her the world, the other will help her destroy it. Born to an elite family, Emmeline has been marked as different from birth by a society that judges all its citizens on their ability to conform. Emmeline only has one option open to her: to become a mother. Offered a procreation contract with Colin, a member of the Ilium, the governing body of the elite, Emmeline finds herself increasingly torn between her complicated feelings for her proposed mate and those she secretly harbours for another man, living on the margins of their society, who challenges her ideals. When the marginalised rise up, Emmeline begins questioning everything she has ever believed in. Set in the far future, Conform is a compelling story of a young woman torn between two loves and two sides of a rebellion boiling under the surface, in the first novel of a sweeping dystopian romance series. This one also sounds very close to my book. We have a society where people are judged on their abilities to conform. That is very true to my society as well, where they think they're in a giant experiment and kind of being tested on their behaviour. We also have this procreation contract in my book. Our main characters are put in an arranged marriage specifically to breed, which is kind of a big agony for my female character who doesn't want to do that at all. So that is very similar, a bit Handmaid's Tale. And then we have this other romance in here where he's kind of different. He lives on the margin, is maybe a rebel, and challenges her ideals. That's very true to the romance in my book as well. So this kind of takes a love triangle, and mine's is basically taking this love triangle and putting it into a single storyline, a single romance, potentially with some more trauma than this has. Although I can't judge this on that yet. And then there's kind of a revolution described, and Emmeline questioning everything she's ever believed in. It's kind of same as mine. There's a revolution. My main character, my main female character, starts to question everything she's believed in up to this point. And it's dystopian romance. And it's described that way, which is interesting. I think dystopian romance is having its moment at the moment. It's going to continue to have its moment the same way fantasy romance has become this huge, huge thing and is staying this huge thing. And this just spurs me on to get the novel fucking finished and polished and forwards to literary agents, because I'm going to miss this window. I already missed the YA dystopia era when the Hunger Games was big. Probably for the best, because whatever I would have written at 22 would have been much worse than what I'm writing at 32. But the wave is back. It's a new adult kind of wave, which is perfect for my book. And I have to get on in there, especially before too many more books that are similar to mine are published, because Conformity and Daggermouth are toeing the line, to be honest. And I can probably make mine's nice and original and fit in among them, but I feel like time's going to run out. So I'm going to get writing pretty rapid, and I'm going to get read all of these before I get too deep into the edits of my book. Make sure I'm staying original, make sure I'm bringing something different to the table. And I think I've found my comps. Daggermouth meets Conformity with the trauma element of Bones. That's what my guess is going into this kind of reading exercise. Maybe I'll do a video once I've read all of these and let you know what I decide on my comps being, because I might completely change my mind once I actually read the books, let you know if I enjoy them or if they turn out to be really too similar to my book, or if I'm like, oh, no, it's fine. I'm still different enough. I'm still original in my own right, and it's all good. I will let you know. But, it's going to take me a while to read all of these. I'm not going to read them all at once. So check in for my monthly reading wrap ups, and you can hear my thoughts more in real time on those as we go through. Because I'm going to be doing palette cleansers, of course, in between these. And I also post kind of my brief thoughts on every book I read on my Instagram as and when I finish the book. So if you want quicker updates and to follow along in my reading journey, go and follow me on Instagram. I also share a lot of good memes in my stories and hopeful and kind of witchy stuff about spring coming and all of those nice things. And I don't have many followers, so I'll probably follow you back. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any other recommendations along these kind of lines based on what I've said, let me know. Let me know what you're loving in the dystopian romance space, what you feel is missing. Call it market research. I would love to know, and I need to know. And if you like the sound of my dystopian romance, subscribe to my channel and follow along in my journey as I finish up the book, edit it, and try to get a literary agent. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.